Hello, hello. JD Grosspitz here, lead singer and streaming talent of Malignant Bear, and we are coming at you pre-recorded today. Uh, Due to some real-life circumstances, I won't be able to stream tonight, and figured I would make this little video in advance just so we could put out some content still. And as you can see, today's game is Nioh 2, and you're thinking, well, JD, you already covered this when it came out. I sure did. I covered this as a port review just to kind of see how the PC port of this game was. Since then, I've played this quite a lot off stream and kind of wanted to revisit it as a more formal review and showcase a little bit more of the gameplay. So this is going to be split sort of into two parts. First and foremost, I am going to replay the first mission of the game on New Game Plus difficulty so that you can get a feel for just the gameplay, how it looks a little different at a higher level with more skills, more gear, more abilities, things like that. And then after that, I'm going to talk about sort of some of the systems, the game story, and things like that, and give it a more formal review. So if you're just curious about gameplay, just watch the first part of this, and I will put actual timestamps in the video description. But if you're curious more about some of the systems and things like that you unlock as you go throughout, you can skip ahead to that as well. So this will be probably a shorter video. Like I said, we're just going to go through just the same first level again that I did in the initial review, but on New Game Plus. So this isn't spoilers or anything like that. So without any further ado, let's jump right in. So you can see here, we are ready to jump in. This is the Village of Cursed Blossoms. This is the very first level of the game. I have my character transformed to be William, the protagonist from the first game. That's one of the things in this game that you can do is you can transform your character to look like other things. I figured William was appropriate for this, partly just because I wanted to see how transformations work, and partly because I didn't want anybody to steal my OC. But the first time that I did this, obviously with the port review, I spent almost 2.5 hours just on this one level. And let's talk about that as we go through. This is something new for New Game Plus, the Divine Item Drop Rate. We're going to ignore that for now because I will discuss that in the gameplay systems. So I'm going to briefly cover my character, my stats, and things like that, and my gear before we go any further. But again, I don't want to go too much into spoilers for this because this is just the first mission and I want to showcase the gameplay. So, I mentioned when I went through this the first time, I made lots and lots of comparisons to Dark Souls. And that is an apt thing to do for the early part of this game and for the early part of the original Nioh. You don't have very many skills, abilities, gear sets, things like that. You pretty much have to take it very slow and methodical, like you would a Dark Souls game. Once you get more into the game, this plays very differently, and that is something you need to know. At the risk of just sounding kind of like a jerk, this is very much a get good game. You can struggle through this and take it very slow and methodically and still treat it like Dark Souls, and you will eventually succeed, at least on the base difficulty. To go any higher, though, you absolutely need to understand all of the different skills and intricacies of this game. So, before we push forward, like I said, it took me 2.5 hours to clear this level the first time on the base difficulty. It is not going to take that long this time, but let's check out what we're working with before we jump in. So, you can see I have a lot more weapons this time around. They are all green. These are divine items. They only drop towards the very end of the base game, in the DLC, and in New Game Plus. That was the case in the first game as well. They are capped at very specific levels. You can see you can kind of boost them up. There's a +2 next to that one. I have quite a few different weapon types here, so we'll showcase a few of those as we go through this. My main weapon throughout the game has been the Switchglaive, though, and you'll see why. It is quite fun. There's plenty of stats on all of these. I have these optimized for the builds that I like, based on the blacksmith, which we'll talk about later on. But you can see there's quite a lot going on here. Obviously, I have 2 weapons equipped at one time, plus some ranged weapons. I have 1 of each, just in case I need them. For the most part, I just use the bow and rifle, though. You have my armor set. I am using the Hayabusa plated headband. You can see it's transmogrified to cat ears for my regular character, but that doesn't showcase here on William. But you can see set bonuses. I have 5 pieces of the set. I need the other 2. This drops from the DLC. I need to farm up the rest of it. But you can see all of these items. They have quite a lot of different stats on them here. And again, divine items for armor have familiarity. I have some accessories as well. I don't think we got any of those in the first video. And then a picture scroll, which is another type of item you can see there. I have all sorts of things equipped. Alright. And just real quick, I'll touch on some of the other things that I have, because this is going to be a little confusing. Otherwise, you can see up in the top left, there's a bunch of little icons. Those are your guardian spirits and your soul cores, and those are other abilities and passives that you have in combat. And I also have a number of different jutsu, ninjutsu equipped, and magic as well. So we won't use those too much because I'm not going to need them for this, but they are there. Alright, so going right ahead. Again, this is literally just the first mission. Again, just on a higher difficulty. So. Alright, off to a good start. Alright. So we picked up a soul core right away. Again, you start to find those in the base game, and there's different things you can get to equip more of them, which is obviously good. You can see it's all spooky and shadowy. This is the Dark Realm, the Yokai Realm. And we're going to do this just for safety's sake, unlock this little shortcut. We are going to fight that guy this time, though. Your first time through the level, it gives you a tutorial tip that you don't have to fight everything in the game. And what you're supposed to do is take this path, avoid that guy, and do some other stuff. Real quick, actually, we are going to adjust the audio because it is slightly loud. Okay. This time we are going to fight this guy, though. Slight spoilers. In typical difficult game fashion, this guy is, of course, a tough enemy, and a variation of this is the boss of this level. Later on, you will fight these as common enemies, sometimes multiple at a time. Oop. Alright, so you can see, he's doing all sorts of crazy stuff here. And your goal in combat, once you get good at the game, is you want to break enemies' ki, the little purple bar that's under their health, and that lets you do massive damage to them, and it stuns them for a little bit. So that's my goal there. After you do that a couple times, you can see his maximum ki gets lower. That little red circle, he is able to be attacked for massive damage. Alright. So again, much easier this time around. Got another picture scroll, which is cool. So I can talk about those later on. The big reason why you fight him is you get the Village Cemetery key, which lets you skip a large portion of this level this time around. Get this loot, even though it's pretty pointless to me. I am absolutely over-leveled and over-geared for this, even on New Game Plus. But that's okay. So the Switchglaive, the weapon I'm using, is very strong, very versatile, even just in the way I'm using it in the single mid-stance. Mid-stance is kind of the safety stance. Ooh, oh my goodness. Rapid fire attacks there. Let's see, let's snipe this guy. Just so you can see that beautiful headshot animation. Drink up. But yeah, mid-stance for most weapons is kind of the safety stance. That is the, you're better at blocking and things like that while you're using it. High stance is more damage, faster attacks. Low stance is very quick, more focused on dodging. So the cool thing about Switchglaive and what it's designed for is switching attacks in combat. So you can see I switched from mid stance to high stance to low as part of my combos. I was able to weave in one of my yokai abilities, so I look a little bit different now. I have some different effects going on. All of those are sort of dependent on what you're doing in the game. Ooh! Quick grab there off that guy. It's something you always have to look out for. Don't want to fight a Gaki and one of those things. So we're just going to skip through. Because again, we don't really need to fight this stuff. We're high level, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to get anything from these like I would the first time around. So there is some kind of basic combos you can do. And you can see one of them is like... just want to break that key up. It's like one of them is just this, and you end with a little punch there. One of them is just doing the key pulse to get rid of that gunk on the ground. That's one of the most basic ones that you need to figure out. And every weapon, every stance has its own combos and things like that. Some enemies have different attacks and abilities that they do. The little Gaki thing there, for example, he drops those little paralysis puddles once they get low health. This is one of my least favorite enemies in the game. The Tesso is a plague monk, and they poop and fart. And that does damage to you and makes it so you can't heal. And they're very fast and very tanky. So we switched up to a very special weapon, a very rare weapon. This is an endgame item, and it does elemental damage of multiple types. Which is incredibly strong, because if you do multiple types of effects to someone, you can see the little icons on his health bar. That makes it so that they get confused, and they take 50% more damage. Pretty much every endgame build is based around proccing confusion on enemies. This guy is unfortunately resistant to water, which is one of the elements of my dual swords here, as you can see. One of the things you can do is, they call it a burst counter. When enemies get that little red icon, you can counter them, and it does a ton of key damage and regular damage to them. The timing of it is completely dependent on what Guardian Spirit you're using. So I don't do it very much because I don't like the timings on it. And if anything, I'd feel like it kind of throws off my rhythm sometimes in combat. But again, it is something you can do, so. You can switch weapons and stances mid-combat. That's not something that's just exclusive to the Switchglaive or anything like that. See our boss music, very exciting. This is like the most common type of yokai in the game. The game loves using this thing. Not so tough now. Again, as you can see, lots of stuff going on. Much more stuff than I had the first time through this. Alright, so we are going to use the shrine again just for safety's sake. And so we can level up. I have all my stats shown in the thumbnail of the video, but we'll show them again here, just so you can kind of see what build I'm going for. My main goal with this build is just to I want to get up to about 25 or 30 in every single stat, because that's how you unlock different passives on your armor and soul cores and things like that. Beyond that, I will start specializing in different things depending on the weapons I'm going to use, which is probably mostly going to be Switchglaive, so I'll be focusing a lot on magic. It's just like Dark Souls, again, right after saying that it is a very different game, one of the things that is similar is, of course, weapon stats and how they influence your build and gear and things like that, so. So again, Switchglaive, for example, gets more powerful based on your magic stat, even if you are not using spells. So one thing I touched on before was these little things, these benevolent graves. The red ones are enemy players who've died, so you get to fight the enemy player, and you get some of their gear. If you were able to beat them, it doesn't steal them from it or steal the gear from them or anything like that. They still keep it. You just get a copy of it, which is cool. Or there's the benevolent graves, and that summons just a little AI companion who joins you and fights with you. So, let's see what these guys have. We'll do this, actually. So again, this is an actual character. This is someone, but they are not live controlling this. For that, you have to do the Torii Gate and summon visitors and things like that. So this is an actual character, but the AI is just controlling them for this. I don't need them for this fight, but I thought it would be kind of neat because this person uses a split staff, which is a weapon I'm not super familiar with, but we can maybe get some showcase of that. So you can see this is very similar to the big guy we fought before. Alright. So again, even though he is a boss, he is still subject to the same restrictions that normal enemies are. I can break his key and everything, and then get him for massive damage there. And here is my my big primary ability, which is where you shift into your demon form and you do even more damage. So again, that took me quite a few attempts the first time. Less than a minute this time. But still, same level. Again, this is New Game Plus. So it skips all the cutscenes and everything like that because you've obviously been through the campaign. So you're just going through it again. The levels are slightly different. The layout is usually the same. There might be some slight variation. There's different enemies, different item drops, things like that. And obviously it's significantly harder. But yeah, that is how fast and efficient you can go through this game. And again, I do outlevel this somewhat, but once you know what you're doing and you're able to kind of switch through and do some fast things like that. So if I will show one more base system here before I kind of go into other things and demonstrate spoilers and stuff like that. And that is the blacksmith, because that's another thing that you unlock very early on, and people might be curious about upgrading your gear and all that. So, standard, this is your standard kind of RPG merchant. They do a little bit of everything. You can buy and sell things here. You can make new things based on recipes that you unlock throughout the game. You can upgrade your equipment. You can change how it looks. You can improve the effects of your equipment, and you can disassemble things to get more crafting materials. So that's a very basic thing here. So we'll check out what she has to sell. Again, you have some kind of standard things, some specialty items, very base versions of all the gear. I don't know why anyone would ever buy this, but it is there. So, and again, you can see some of the different things you can make. So, for example, if I wanted this specific set sword, you can see all the materials it takes. Some of them are rare based on various demons that you kill in the game. So I can only make one of these, I only have one shot at it. You can see up at the top the rarity levels. That is the % chance I have to make this item be that rarity. Or I can add divine fragments from disassembling green items to make this a green item as well. So, early game, and basically throughout the entirety of the new game, you're going to just be replacing your gear constantly. That is the way to stay up to date on everything. Soul matching, where you upgrade your equipment by infusing it with other higher level items, is prohibitively expensive your first playthrough. And even now, there's only a few pieces that I would actually consider doing that for. It's mostly like the big weapons and things like that. So if you're going through fresh, basically ignore that this is a feature. just use whatever is best from what you're finding. But yeah, later on in New Game Plus and going forward, this is how you'll be getting gear for the most part, is finding things, upgrading what you have that you actually use, and going forward from there. Alright, so we're almost exactly 20 minutes in here, so this is where I'll kind of cut it off and timestamp it here for people who don't want spoilers as I talk about some other features of the game. Alright, so I mentioned again, this is New Game Plus, we're much higher up. So again, that was evident with my gear here. So one of the things that we picked up in that game was this Demon Parade picture scroll. And you can see I already have one equipped. And the whole point of this is that this is a kind of special mission where you have to go through and you fight the things that it says there with enemies appearing. And once you do that, it unlocks the other abilities on here, the other special effects, and then you can actually equip it. The more times you do it, it can change those effects. I like the one I'm using because I use mid-attack stance most of the time, but this one's pretty good. It increases my mid-attack, or decreases the amount of ki I use in mid-attack, increases my low attack damage, which is nice for the dual swords here, and I do more damage when an enemy is winded, which means they're out of ki, so basically my grapple damage on things is just massive because of this. I have no reason to re-roll this, it's already incredibly good, but I'll see what this one is eventually. Outside of that, obviously you have your other standard gear, different things equipped. Here you can see my soul cores, and these are dropped by different items, or not different items, different enemies rather, including bosses. So this one is from the third boss of the game, the Yatsuno Kami. This boss is a massive brick wall for a lot of players. He is incredibly difficult. I unironically think that this boss is harder than most of the bosses in this game, and most of the bosses in the original game as well. It's a crazy kind of first impression of the game if you get to it. Its ability is very good. As you can see, it summons that snake thing, and it goes through enemies, sometimes multiple times, depending on the distance. It does a ton of damage. These other ones, you can also use these abilities. This one I mostly have so that I gain health back when I do water damage. So you gain all of these special effects in addition to being able to use the yokai ability that they have. And this one I mostly have for the defense and the poison resistance, because that's really nice to have. But you can see I also have my my Guardian Spirit, and again, this is mostly just to get life recovery from when I purify things, and it increases my water damage, which attunes well with the Kappa Soul Core. And let's see. Oh, I can't switch to the other one, that's boring. I was gonna say, because you get the ability to use two of them, so we'll showcase that. That's not what I wanted. Shrine. Here is all the different Guardian Spirits in the game. There's even more because I'm still going through the DLC, so I don't have them all. You eventually get the ability to equip two at once, and the main one, your primary one, you get all of their bonuses from, so you can see all of the things in the Guardian Spirit protection. And the secondary one, you just get the one that's listed with the little fox icon here. So again, all of my stuff on this build is based around getting health back from water damage. I have weapons that do water damage, and tons of magic that does that. Water effect is drowning people, and it increases the damage they take from everything else. So basically, if I start to get low or I'm taking lots of chip damage, I'll throw on an ability that does water damage, whittle them down, heal myself back up, and then just wreck them with something else. You can see each of my Guardian Spirits has different skills equipped, and you can switch between them in combat as well. So for example, my main one is the Phantom Demon that you saw earlier. You can also just switch, and you would see me as the Feral Demon instead, and then I would get all of these bonuses and just the life recovery from purification instead. And again, all of that is on the fly. There is a slight global cooldown on everything, but the game is incredibly fast-paced and frantic, and you need to learn how to figure that out if you're going through it. I am by no means a master player at this. I'd barely even say that I'm good, but there's videos out there of people that are just extraordinary at this game. You know, full comboing the last boss of the game on the hardest difficulty setting with nothing but their bare fists, which is an absolutely viable build if you want to do that. There's tons of stuff you can do here. You can see I have all of my soul cores. I got a bunch of new ones that I'm not using. And all of these, they again Most of them have their own different abilities, and you can see a little preview of them, plus their special effects, and they also increase your stats as you're using them. I desperately need to get a better Kappa Soul. I've found only one the entire game, and that was a long, long time ago. But yeah, there's a ton of them. Just as an aside, this boss, Lady Asakabe, is bugged on PC, at least at the time of recording this video. Her attacks and AI are tied to the frame rate. I fought her at 140 FPS. It was terrible. I didn't know that it was broken until after I struggled through this for an entire afternoon. I did finally beat her, and then I read online and everybody was like, cap your FPS to 30 and it's the easiest fight in the game. Wish I'd known that. So if anybody's watching this and hasn't gotten her yet, do that. You can fuse your soul cores to make them stronger. You can get rid of them to level up your shiftling powers, which is your demon stuff. Stone of Penance is another endgame system that I haven't even messed with yet. There's tons of different jutsu, so that's your spells and your ninjutsu, and you can only have different ones equipped at any given time. So you can see I just have some very basic ones right now. This is just giving me different elemental effects on my weapons. Basic shurikens, poison damage, fire bombs, things like that. Have a bunch of other ones that I switch out depending on the mission sometimes. You can see your capacity there, so I can equip more, I just don't. Obviously level up. Let's go back. So obviously we saw my stats. There's the full skill tree. We'll check this out real quick again. Switchglaive is a good example because I'm using this quite a lot. Once you get far enough in the game with a specific weapon, you unlock the ability to battle one of the masters of that weapon in the dojo, and that unlocks these special skills. And this kind of late game passive one, once you fill out this tree completely, which you will be able to do for every weapon, or at least the ones that you want to, there will come a point where this is all you're doing, and this just keeps going up and up and up, and this is the base damage of your Switchglaive attacks. And every single weapon has that. Obviously then there's your magic and your ninjutsu, your base skills, that's just your passives for your character, your demon skills, things like that. And all of those play into the skill customization. So this is the meat and bones of the game, and this is what makes it very different from Dark Souls, and this is the thing that you have to master. Every single weapon, as I said, has all three stances. Every single stance has its own attacks and combos that you can do, and different weapons have where you can chain into different stances depending on the combo that you're pulling off. The Switchglaive is the most efficient at doing this. That's literally what the weapon is designed for, but other ones have that too. So you can see I have different skills depending on the stance. There's the combos I need to pull off to do them. Most of my points are in mid stance again because that's, for the most part, that's the way where you want to stay, in my opinion, as you're just going through a level, especially for the first time. Mid stance is very efficient on both attacking and blocking, and it's just generally kind of a safe place to be. Once you get more used to things, or if you want to play, for example, more aggressive, you can go into high stance or low stance and change things up. Or you might want to change depending on the type of enemy you're facing, what weapons they have, what gear, what armor, all that good stuff. There's a lot of depth to this. There's mystic arts as well, and those are things that you unlock with your skills, and you can see that it basically just changes some of my active skills, but in return, they have a different key cost, which is something you want to keep in mind. So I'm not using any right now, but depending on the fight, I might change them out because some of them change my elemental damage and stuff like that, which is really cool. And again, every single weapon very different. So we go here to the starting point. You can see the dojo, and this is just for New Game Plus. So some of these I have to unlock again here for New Game Plus to do them again. Most of these I did do in the base game because I've been messing around with all the different types of weapons. But yeah, lots there. And the blacksmith, like I said, I did touch on that briefly. The Torii Gate is the online mode. The interim is story content that I don't want to spoil. Hidden Tea House is another one of the online modes. And the cool thing with this is the clan battle system. So later on in the game, you get the ability to join one of the great clans of the Warring States period. And you can see... Actually, there's my stats and everything. Go back. I want to see... Oh, it doesn't tell me what I'm actually getting for that. Oh, here we go. Okay. Each clan has its own kind of base benefits and stuff like that. So I am in the Toyotomi clan right now. It's the most popular one in the game for good reason. It gives you a bonus to the Amrita you gain, and you recover life when you absorb Amrita. So you'll be doing that all game. There's a reason why everyone uses this one. But each one of these has different abilities. They're all passive things based on what you're doing in the game. So depending on your build and things like that, you can and will change things up, and people do. There's a lot of these, and even the minor ones, like some of these that like have hardly any members, depending on what you're doing, people do use these for their builds, and it's really cool to see what they can do. Like this one is increased attack and defense with fists. And like I said, there is totally videos out there of people just wrecking this game barehanded. In clan battles, it's based on items that you donate or your skill throughout the game. So as you kill different enemies, you gain glory, and that contributes to your clan. The red clans have won pretty much every single clan battle since this game launched, as far as I can tell. So, but yeah, you can donate your gear. You get different rewards for that. And then you can trade those rewards in for some basic items, some different forms that you could transform into. Spoilers on some of those, obviously, and items as well. So actually, we'll do one of these just for the heck of it. Let's see here, what would be a good one? I don't have any good spears. Let's see what we get. Oh boy. So again, it's nothing special, but this is sort of a late game thing. Once you've purchased everything else you need with glory, you can just gamble it away and get some better items. So. But yeah, as far as this game itself, let me turn down the audio again just so I can kind of talk a little bit more. Okay, because yeah, it is kind of loud. This game is excellent. I absolutely loved the first game. I mentioned that before. Thought it was fantastic. And that was one where, as I was playing through that, I got a little bit into the combat and the intricacies of it, but not too much. I just did one playthrough of it in the DLC. I didn't even jump on a New Game Plus at all, and I loved it. This I plan on going through more playthroughs because I'm getting more used to the combat and all that. It's very much, the combat's more Ninja Gaiden than Dark Souls once you get into it, which is fantastic. There's a ton you can do with this. Gameplay-wise, fantastic. I love the item collection and all that. Graphics, sound design, all pretty good. All great. There's no real complaints there. I would say that my only complaint with the graphics, and why I might say it's pretty good, is there's a lot of visual noise. There's levels where there's an overwhelming amount of effects sometimes, and that can get little hard on the eyes. You'll know what I'm talking about when you get into it. But again, it's more a nitpick than anything. The port is still solid. There's some bugs and issues, and they're working on them right now with a big patch, from what I can tell. So they're aware of problems and they want to get them fixed up and things like that. My biggest gripe with the game is the story is a little nonsensical. It is alternate history warring states, and the first game was pretty easy to follow. You basically followed a couple of characters the entire time. This one is a little goofy. It's earlier in the Warring States period, and it just kind of assumes that you know the history and who these people are. And I do, and even with that, there was some parts where I was like, I don't know what's going on or why. It ties it all together very nicely, including elements from the first game. So even though this is a sequel, but it's a prequel, but it's also a sequel. So you have to play the first one to get the most out of the story. It ties it all together very well, so I definitely recommend doing both. Unfortunately, they just never go on sale on PC. So, but yeah, this game's fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. And again, even if you do just want to kind of struggle through it, playing it as a Souls-like, going slow and methodically, if you want to do that, you can. It's possible and viable to go through the entire base game with just a sword on mid stance, which is essentially, the Dark Souls build. having your standard katana. Going through on mid stance, you'll be pretty decent at everything, um, very capable. You can experience everything the game has to offer, and then branch out if you want to. You will still get enjoyment out of that, no doubt in my mind. So this is a very easy game to recommend. And again, there is tons and tons and tons of depth to this once you get more into it. This is absolutely a game that I can see people playing for hundreds, if not thousands, of hours. Even just to get to the point where I am, I have about 100 hours in this game so far, and I've loved every minute of it. Even some of the frustrating parts, like I said, that boss that was bugged and things like that. I can't recommend this enough. Character creator is pretty in depth. If you want to have a laugh at that, check out the first video. There's tons of different transformations as well, so if you're not creative or you just like some of the other older characters or some of the newer ones, you can totally just transform into them as well and save yourself that trouble. And again, just the build variety and the things you can do, you can see even with some of these, like the gears turning in terms of what's possible, and as you change things up and all that, what you can do with different things, and switching weapons mid-combat. This one, for example, is Tonfa. It does lightning damage, it does bonus attacks when I grapple, it does life drain when I grapple, and it has a gun, which gives me access to different special abilities and different special skills with it. The Tonfa is the weapon I've used least in this game, and even with that, I can say it's really cool. So this game is just an absolute treat if you love sort of build crafting and theory crafting and things like that. The loot collection as well. In base game, it's overwhelming. There's just so much junk, you're just going to be throwing it away because a lot of it doesn't matter. But you'll be doing some actual theory crafting and like things like this. Any of these abilities that have the little 2 bars, that's things that you inherit when you soul match. So it might be the case where you find, an item that's terrible but has a good skill on it or a good passive, and you want to have that go on to something else that you actually want to use. That's totally viable. So there's lots of different ways that you can build yourself out. So there's a lot of fun to be had with this game. And again, even just to do the base game, and I'm still working on the DLC. I've put 100 hours into this. Obviously, there's people who are much more efficient. They figured out the combat much faster than I did. Some of that runtime was just with it on and sitting there. So, maybe not actually 100 hours, but still, there's a lot to be had here. Even if it never goes on sale, the value proposition for this is very high. But yeah, this is Nioh 2. Like I said, I just wanted to touch on this because I had mentioned in another stream that I did beat it off stream. I beat the base game off stream, rather, and I'm still going through it. And I figured this was a good one to kind of revisit and retouch just as a quicker video, as of course as we're approaching 40 minutes here now, as a quicker video just to put out some more of my thoughts on it now that I've actually completed it. I hope they do more patching to it again to fix some of the little bugs, some of the issues. It has crashed on me a couple times, and there's been some other weird bugs like where all the text will disappear in a menu and stuff like that. But it's never crashed from like in mission. It's pretty much every issue that I've had aside from that one fight being tied to frame rate has all been within the menus, which is very bizarre. So hopefully easy fixes. It runs well on my system. Again, it's hard not to recommend this game if you have any interest in, the sort of feel and pacing of a Souls game, the combat of an action-oriented game like Ninja Gaiden, or the loot of a game like Diablo. This is it. This scratches all of those itches. Again, the story, kind of nonsensical, but if you are a fan of Japanese history and just kind of want to see some of those major players, obviously they're in tons of other games, but you can see them again here and interact with a bunch of them, which is kind of cool, and get this game's unique spin on that. And again, this is made by Team Ninja, the Ninja Gaiden people, so it's going to be kind of dark and gritty and over the top and silly and fun, and it delivers that absolutely. So hope you enjoyed this. Now I just talked very quickly through it, but again, just wanted to put out a video for something a little different. So hope you enjoyed this, and keep tuning in and everything. As always, we are always open to suggestions of things that we can stream or review and give our thoughts on, things like that. We're always happy to do that. So Hope you enjoyed, and until next time, have a good one.